Imagine the North Atlantic 1,000 years ago. Harsh winds whip across endless waves, while a single wooden ship pushes west into the unknown. These were no ordinary sailors. They were Vikings, fearless explorers, traders, and warriors. And according to ancient sagas, they reached a land far beyond Greenland, a land rich with forests, wild grapes, and fertile soil. They called it Vinland. But here's the mystery. This story comes not from modern history books, but from medieval legends. Could the Norse really have discovered North America nearly 500 years before Columbus? Archaeology says yes, but the truth is stranger and more complicated than legend alone. The story of Vinland first appears in two medieval texts, the Saga of the Greenlanders and the Saga of Eric the Red. Written centuries after the events, these tales describe the daring voyage of Leif Erikson, son of Eric the Red, the founder of Greenland. According to the sagas, Leif sailed west after hearing rumors of land across the sea. When he finally reached it, he found rich meadows, endless forests, and wild grapes growing in abundance, a sharp contrast to the icy world he had left behind. This was Vinland, the mysterious land of wine and plenty. The sagas read like adventure novels, men exploring new shores, naming rivers and capes, even clashing with unknown peoples. And though details are often exaggerated, these accounts became the backbone of the legend that Vikings had discovered a new world long before the age of exploration. To understand how the Norse reached the new world, we need to look at the ships they built. Viking vessels were masterpieces of engineering, light enough to be hauled across land, yet strong enough to cross the brutal North Atlantic. The Nar, a sturdy cargo ship, was the workhorse of long-distance voyages. It had a wide hull for supplies, animals, and crew, powered by a single square sail and steady rows of oars. For the Vikings, the ocean was not a barrier. It was a highway. From Norway to Iceland, then to Greenland, each leap across the sea pushed them further into the unknown. And unlike later explorers who relied on compasses, the Vikings had to read the world itself. They followed the flight of seabirds, the direction of ocean swells, and the color of the water. Some sources even mention sunstones, crystals that could reveal the position of the sun on cloudy days. Whether myth or reality, their navigational skills bordered on legendary, but the crossing was anything but safe. The North Atlantic is one of the most violent seas on Earth. Imagine open decks, freezing spray, storms that could smash a ship like a toy. Many voyages must have ended in silence, swallowed by the ocean. Yet enough survived to carry the Norse west beyond Greenland to a shore no European had seen before. A land waiting to be named, waiting to be remembered as Vinland. For centuries, the Vinland sagas were dismissed as legend, colorful tales with no proof. That changed in the 1960s when a Norwegian explorer couple, Helga and Anne Steen Ingstad, followed local stories on the northern tip of Newfoundland, Canada. What they uncovered would shake the world of history. At a windswept site called Meadows, they found the remains of 8 timber-framed buildings, longhouses built in a style unmistakably Norse. The settlement included workshops, storage rooms, and even evidence of iron smelting, something no indigenous people in that region practiced at the time. A single iron nail, hammered by Viking blacksmiths 1,000 years ago, suddenly became the smoking gun, proving the sagas had truth behind them. Radiocarbon dating placed the site around the year 1000, perfectly matching the era of Leif Erikson's voyages. This was no myth. Vikings had stood on American soil, built homes, repaired ships, and lived here, at least for a short time. Still, Meadows raises as many questions as it answers. The settlement is small, barely big enough for a few dozen people. Was it a permanent colony, or just a base camp for exploration further south? Did they reach the warmer lands described in the sagas, rich with grapes and fertile fields? The archaeology is clear. Norse explorers made it to North America, but the full story of Vinland, where it was and how far it extended, remains partly hidden. Even with Meadows confirmed, the mystery of Vinland refuses to rest. Over the years, countless other clues have surfaced, some fascinating, others deeply controversial. Take the Kensington runestone, discovered in Minnesota in 1898. Its runic inscriptions tell of a Norse expedition deep inside North America in the 14th century. For decades, it was hailed as proof that Vikings had traveled far inland. But linguistic experts and archaeologists argue it's a clever hoax carved by Scandinavian settlers much later. To this day, debate rages. Is it genuine or just a well-made fake? Then there are the stray artifacts, coins, weapons, even stones with carvings that occasionally surface across Canada and the United States. Some are explained as trade items, others as outright frauds planted to fool museums. Yet each discovery reignites the possibility that Viking footprints reached farther south than Newfoundland. But archaeology is a harsh judge. Beyond Los Meadows, no settlement has been conclusively proven Norse. Still, the sagas describe warmer lands, rivers full of salmon, and fields where cattle could graze year-round. Could those tales be echoes of real explorations into New England or even further? Or are they the exaggerations of sailors telling stories by firelight? The truth may lie somewhere in between, a blend of fact and myth blurred over centuries. And that gray zone is exactly what keeps the legend of Vinland alive. The sagas don't just describe landscapes, they speak of encounters with people. The Norse called them Skraelings, most likely the ancestors of the Beothuk and other indigenous peoples of North America. These meetings were anything but simple. At first, there were attempts at trade. The sagas tell of the Vikings offering red cloth and receiving animal furs in return. But mistrust grew quickly. Small misunderstandings sparked into violence. One story recalls a bull brought from Greenland, breaking loose and terrifying the Skraelings. Panic turned to anger, and soon arrows were flying. For the Norse, used to battles in Europe, warfare was not unusual. But here, they were vastly outnumbered, far from reinforcements, and dependent on fragile supply lines. Even their iron weapons and armor couldn't balance the odds against larger groups of skilled hunters who knew the land. These clashes may explain why Vinland never became a lasting colony. Survival across the Atlantic demanded not just courage, but cooperation, and that was in short supply. Within a few years, the sagas suggest the Norse abandoned their outpost and returned to Greenland, leaving behind little more than ruins and legend. Though the Vinland colony vanished, its legacy never died. For centuries, whispers of a land across the sea lingered in Icelandic sagas. Carried from storyteller to storyteller, most dismissed them as folklore. Yet in the 20th century, archaeology confirmed what the old tales had preserved. Vikings had reached North America around the year 1000. Today, Leif Erikson is remembered as one of history's greatest explorers. Statues of him stand in places as far apart as Norway, Iceland, Greenland, and even the United States. In fact, October 9th is celebrated as Leif Erikson Day in America, honoring the Norse who touched its shores long before Columbus. But the mystery remains. Where exactly was Vinland? Was it just Newfoundland, or did the Vikings push further south to Nova Scotia, New England, perhaps even beyond? The sagas describe grapes and fertile valleys, landscapes richer than the cold north. Somewhere, the real Vinland may still lie hidden, waiting for the next discovery. What is certain is this: the Norse were not just raiders, but world-class seafarers who crossed oceans with courage and skill. Their brief presence in North America stands as proof that human exploration has always reached further than the limits set by textbooks. And Vinland, half history, half legend, still invites us to imagine what other voyages may have been lost to time.